But thank you so much for
Okay.
help. That was really interesting. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
John, I'm curious, what happens when the length you need doesn't line up with the spacing between the ties?
Great question. We're constantly needing 113.2 track, and they don't sell it that way. And there's so many things we need to do custom, and we're at the mercy of the people who manufacture the track. So I'm thrilled about being able to create my own track to my own dimensions, but I have to be super strict about meeting the dimensions of the what's called the gauge, how the train fits on the track. So I'm so thrilled that I might be able to get my exact custom length, but meet the gauge requirements for the cars.
Hey guys, Vladimir here. I'm going to try something new. I've got tons of really good Fusion contents from my weekly live Zoom class and thought I would start uploading some class snippets to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the first one, so sort of a little pilot. Let me know how it goes if you enjoy these. That way I'll know if it's worth continuing to upload them. And if you're interested in joining my weekly class, check out the link below. All right, enjoy. Student questions. John, you had a question. Do you want to bring up your design? Do you have it?
Can you see
Yeah.
railroad tracks? These are model railroad tracks. I do a lot of model railroading on two big model railroads, and we're trying to do more in 3D printing. This is a model railroad track. I'll use the timeline and go back. You can see I did the rails and then this sketch. The trouble is when I do the sketch, they cross. You see how I get little pieces of the rails and the ties. What I was trying to explain, I think other people have the same thing. I can get this done. I'm trying to get back to the finished sketch. I get this done eventually, but the workflow can't be the right way because by the time I get here, I have done a single tie and a single rail, and it takes so much longer. I did a Loom video that I think might do a better job of explaining it, Vladimir.
You created, go into that sketch. Can you double click your sketch?
I'm not trying to use Zoom and Fusion at the same time.
The little thing keeps getting in
The way. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's the sketch.
Right click on the sketch and click on edit.
Yes, you're right. There we go.
So did you create each one or pattern that?
I patterned so what I did was I created the two rails, made a tie, and then patterned that tie all the way up. I had a particular distance between the ties, but I just went ahead and eyeball, like I do a lot of times, I eyeball it, and I said 30 looked about right. And the main thing is that these are now, this piece and that piece make up a tie, and all these pieces make up a rail. When I go to extrude, I can get it done one by one, as you saw, but there must be a better way.
Right. So the problem is that you have all those different profiles you have to select individually and extrude them. Let's hear some group solutions. How would you approach this design to make it more efficient?
I would approach it like I did my project with the DVD rails. I would put down the track and one tie and create a body and then rectangular pattern that to whatever length you need.
Yeah,
because that way you've only got the single extrude on a smaller body, and then you can pattern that.
What would it help if you hit the sketch of the tracks and then extrude the ties and then?
I thought that. I've tried it both ways, but no, I always wind up with intersecting lines, which causes the sketch to be divided into the pieces I was showing there earlier, this business.
Well, so I get where Kayvon's going with that, but in order to go, if you wanted to hide, for example, the rails and select the tracks, you would have to design them on two separate sketches, like create one and then create the other one a separate sketch and then hide it. Do you get what he's saying?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but I was hoping I didn't need to do that much. Maybe that is the way to do it.
Well, no, I still like Ed's answer. Ed, repeat what you said.
Well, I was thinking he could just draw a single track, the spacing from one tie to the other, create a small scale single tie, extrude that to make the body, and then use a rectangular pattern to make the track as long as it needs to go. And the other thing I thought, maybe before he applied the rectangular pattern at the sketch level, is if he went in and trimmed out some of the bits of the sketch where, to create it open so he doesn't have the pieces the lines crossing each other. The trim tool might be helpful to cut it out and then do the rectangular pattern.
Well, it
But
is.
when you're saying extrude the rail first and then go in and do the tracks individually.
I don't think you want to trim those. It's
Yeah.
you're gonna lose.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you can't trim the track because you need you need that to go.
Yeah, I don't know how to get back to, if you can see the picture that um,
Yeah, click on finish sketch. That'll get you back up to. Yeah,
Finish?
on the
finish
top.
sketch.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, you see how the extrusion
Yeah,
is 0.3 up into the rail and the rail is 1.3 up. There are two extrusions and they both have to happen. Ultimately, I'd love to put in parameters, give me 110 millimeter of track, and poof, there it is. But that's long-term thinking.
Would
All
it
right.
be better to start off by simply making separate bodies of both elements, the rails being one body and the, what did you call the other things?
Tie.
Ties.
It's high.
They would be another set of bodies, and then they could be incorporated as you wish, when you wish.
You could extrude the tie in a negative direction so it didn't go into the rails. I had that problem with letters on one level and a base plate on the other, so I would just go below the plane, and that way I could have them separate.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but isn't that still a problem for selecting it? Still overlapping. So even if you try to extrude it the other way, aren't you still intersecting? So the sketch is still intersecting.
Yeah, well, that would be assuming you're not creating a multitude of ties. Let's say you just create one and then your two rails.
Should they be components? Create two different components?
You can do components. I don't, I don't think we need to go there to even solve the problem here.
What about just designing the rail with the cutouts and then do your track as long as you want? You can lengthen the rails to whatever length you need or pattern them, I guess. And then just lay them on top of the, fuse them together, just extrude them so that they join. So it would have two extrusions, one for your track and one for the rail that goes on top with the little cutout.
Vicky, were you saying design it in a side view instead of a top down?
Yes.
So you extrude through the ties. Yeah. Anyone else got any suggestions before we tackle?
basically, tailing off what Vicky said, if you did the ties on one sketch and then did the rails on a offset plane above the base plane and then extrude down and let it cut into the ties. It required two sketches, but you could do the two extrudes, one on the ties and one on the rail, cutting down into them and do a join operation instead of cut when it goes in there.
Well, John, what's a more realistic design? Is it to have the rail sitting on top of the ties, or would you want them to go through?
Now, it's very important that the rail be flat against the surface it's mounted on and the tie be exactly equal to the bottom of the rail.
Okay, so yeah, we can't have it go through then.
Well, I don't know how you get to it, but what you see here is a very flat tie against the surface of where it's mounted and a rail that exactly meets that same surface. So that edge right there and that one right there are exactly flat to whatever surface this is here.
Well, you would extrude down to the plane.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you drew your sketch on the top of your track, you draw the two tracks, extrude from there down into the rails for the cross ties. Fusion would want to cut into that, but you could override that with a join and create the one body, and it would be the right distance.
Could you make just one section of the very top where you have the section of the rail and tie, and then pattern that all the way down and join them?
That's actually, well, I don't know if I'm not familiar with join, but I am actually creating each one of these.
Mhm.
I did 4 of them as an example, but what I'm trying to avoid is doing roughly 30 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, John, go ahead and stop your share and I'll launch my Fusion here.
Thank you for the suggestions. I always
Great.
manage to get it done some darn way, but it takes 2 hours and I feel like I could have done it in 20 minutes if I had smart people doing it instead of me.
That was me with the class challenge.
So everyone sees my Fusion?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna create a sketch here on this XY plane. and start with the 2 rails first. I'm going to use some rough dimensions here. Let's say 200 by 10. And then we'll create another one. Okay, we can dimension these, but I'll just go ahead and do that. So we have 2 rails here, right? I'm going to finish that sketch. And then we can extrude these. Oops. Both of these, I don't know, say go up 5 millimeters. Okay, now we'll create another sketch on that same XY plane. And
We'll be able to have the same width protruding from each rail. That is a requirement. The part of the tie that extends beyond the rail should be the same on each side. Center the tie between the rails.
the tie to center between the rails.
The amount of space by which the tie extends beyond the
Each
rail
side,
on the
okay.
left and right side should be the same.
Okay, so let's, you know what? I don't think I gave these a dimension. I'm going to go back to that first sketch. Dimension this from the origin. What's that dimension? Why isn't this? This is a good way. I'll just kind of show some tips and actually do it more of the correct way. So when you have a sketch that's all blue, it's not fully constrained. I'll start to move it. Okay, it's moving up and down. So we can set a horizontal constraint on like this point in the origin. That's going to bring it down. Now we have this fully constrained. It's 70 millimeters from this edge and 10 and 200. Finish that sketch and I'll go back to the sketch. I'm drawing the tie on a separate sketch here. If we need this to be centered, one way we can pretty much just draw a line here, and that should give me that same dimension of 70 millimeters. I'm going to hit X to make it a construction line. What's the quickest way to get this centered?
Midpoint vertical.
Right. So
construction
let's
line.
say I do my midpoint in, I can take this. You would just do whatever edges you want, one midpoint to another. So this one and this one. And it's going to make that midpoint. No matter how much I change that dimension, I could make this 120, doing it to this point there. Let's redraw that. See how there's a point right here?
Yep.
That's going to mess that up. Create another rectangle. Let's give it dimension, say 10 by 100. And now if I come in and grab a midpoint in between those two edges, should...
What? You didn't get rid of that.
Yeah,
other
the
point.
dot's still, yeah, the point's still
It's
there.
still there. Where's that dot coming from?
Your construction line is extending past the other track.
Oh, is that what was moving? That
Yeah.
construction line? Okay, let's give that dimension again. So let's try that one more time. 10 by 100. Midpoint. There we go. I should be able to change this to anything. And these are always going to extend the same distance because this is always going to be midpoint constraint to that line, the distance there, that line that was between the two edges of the rails. 110, that's fine there. Okay, so now, yeah, the way I would approach this is I would take, so now we can extrude that, finish this sketch. And so we would want it to, was it to extrude down so the rails are on top of it?
Into the rail.
Into the rail.
Go
So
up. Go up.
does it go both ways, up and down?
It can. Leave it flat on the bottom.
Okay. Flat on the bottom. We'll go up those 3 millimeters and change the cut to a new body. Now they are combining the same space. A cut would be best with more realistic, right? And you can do that with a Boolean operation. But let's just go, we can do that after anyway too. But now at this point, I would create a rectangular pattern.
Yeah.
You know, I think then this is what Ed was saying. So now we can do distance or extent.
The reason you're seeing a solid blue across the tie is because this is a body or something.
Well, I haven't selected yet. So it asks you here, do you want to select
Yeah.
faces or bodies? I'm going to go with bodies. It went ahead and selected the face. That's why you were seeing that blue. Make sure you get this part right. Select bodies. And you can select any line or edge that goes in the direction you want. So I'll select the edge on the tie. I can start dragging this arrow up and it'll start to create that pattern. Now you have the option of going between extent or spacing. If you do extent, you basically tell it how far you want it to go. And if you do spacing, you tell it the distance between the ties. For example, 50 millimeters. And if I keep adding them, it'll just keep adding them to keep that spacing.
Good.
And then I can bring this down. If 50 is too much, you always want to keep the same sign that it's giving you. So it's a -20. It's just going to go ahead and keep that same spacing. Each one you add is going to add another one, but keep that same spacing there. So let's say maybe -30. Then I could remove one more there. You can tweak that to add as many ties as you need. The other way with extent is you would basically say, well, I know my distance and tell it how many you want it to fit in there, and it'll change the spacing to fit the amount that you want. It's just how you want to define it.
I want to use spacing, I can tell.
Okay, so yeah, and then once you click OK, there you go.
Well, I think it's because you said body. You had the entire tie selected and it came up. I've been doing this piece business.
With the pattern?
Yes, with the extrusion actually.
Well,
because-
yeah, you've been doing a completely different approach where so if you go back to my sketch, I have one sketch, just the rails, and I extruded that. The other sketch is one tie. I extruded that. When you need to pattern, the best approach is to make the minimal sketch you need. You then extrude that sketch to get your body and then pattern that body. That's really the best.
The key to what you did too is you created a second body. You didn't allow it to join. The cross tie is its own body where it can be patterned.
If I expand the bodies here, you'll see each of these are its own body.
Oh.
Now, let's say I'm going to do a cut because this is breaking some laws of physics. We can't have these occupying the same space. So we'll go to modify, combine. I'll choose this rail here and choose an operation as a cut. And then for my target body, that's going to be the rail. Actually, let's reselect that. And then my tool body is going to be each one of these ties. I can either select them here or I can select them right here on my under my browser. Now, the important thing, you'll see all the red, that's the tool body. It's going to cut the tie, or the ties are going to cut the rails. But the important selection you want to do here is to keep the tools, because your ties are your tools and you're going to need those. Otherwise, it'll just delete them when it's done. So I'll click OK. Now, if I look under here, if I untoggle, I forgot one, but if I untoggle the rest of these, notice how there's a cut there.
Are you assuming he needs to print these separately? Is that why you're doing this? Because if he's doing it all on one go, then there's no need to do this.
I just asked for the most realistic model of it. But if this is just, you want to 3D print it and you just want it to look right, then you don't have to do this part.
Yeah, that would be right. That's actually, but I appreciate the other way too.
Yeah. So this way, so I forgot this one section here. Let me just add that in. Go back to that feature. And where it says tool body, I'm going to go to tool and add that to my selection. Now, if I remove this, you'll see. You don't need to do it this way, but I'll show you in case you wanted to print this as something to assemble later. To do the other side, you would just repeat that operation. So I'll combine. Target body is this rail. The tool body is each one of these ties. We're going to keep tools and cut. Click OK. So now you've got your ties there. And if I remove these rails, you see your cut operation.
Great. You had two sketches and two different bodies.
Right. And when you're patterning, doing it the other way, where you create your whole sketch and then try to extrude, it's just going to create a lot more work for you.
Just tell me if I'm on the right track with the idea that this whole thing could be parameterized and I could enter give me 115 meters of track, and then the parameters would take off and go. It's way beyond my skill level right now, but I'm thinking that ought to be doable.
Yeah, it's absolutely doable. Anyone have any suggestions about that?
I do. I actually just went through this with my DVD deal. I learned I could set up a parameter for the spacing to hold the disc, but when I tried to set up a quantity number, that didn't work. When I entered the parameter, when I tried to go back and change it, it ended up kind of breaking things and created quite a mess. So what I ended up doing was, this would be a good example. If you were to cut the midpoint between each of the tracks to create one tie, and from middle to middle and make one body out of that, then patterned it. I set up parameters for length, width, spacing I wanted, and then I did a parameter for the pattern spacing. If I went from 15 millimeters to 30, that pattern spacing would adjust accordingly. So when I used my rectangular pattern tool, I could use a variable for the spacing and figure out how many I need for my 300 millimeter print bed. If it's a 15 millimeter spacing, I would repeat it more times than if it was 30, 10 if it's 30, and 20 the other way.
Okay, well, the trick for me is the bodies and the two sketches, and I'm going to go back and do that. And then I'm going to work towards a parameterized. That's the ultimate.
This is actually a great exercise for using parameters. I do like that idea of, okay, how do we come in and just say, this is the length of track I need, and it takes care of everything else. It knows now this.
We have very strict measurements that we have to meet in order to meet the rails of the train.
Yeah.
We have all those measurements defined, just how many millimeters of track do you need? That's what I'm constantly asking and trying to do.
I think this is a great approach for that. It'll save you a lot of time where you can just come in and say, hey, we need another, another 5 feet of track or whatever. Boom. The rest is defined in parameters. It'll just define it for you. Continue working on that, and let's see, we'll revisit this next time and see how we can improve it and make it more efficient with parameters.
I revisit it all the time, but thank you so much for
Okay.
help. That was really interesting. I appreciate it.
John, I'm curious, what happens when the length you need doesn't line up with the spacing between the ties?
Great question. We're constantly needing 113.2 track, and they don't sell it that way. And there's so many things we need to do custom, and we're at the mercy of the people who manufacture the track. So I'm thrilled about being able to create my own track to my dimensions, but I have to be super strict about meeting the dimensions of the what's called the gauge, how the train fits on the track. So I'm so thrilled that I might be able to get my exact custom length, but meet the gauge requirements for the cars.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a cool project you got going.
You can see what we do at mrdavez.com. mrdavez.com. That's our railroad.
Are you spelling that, Mr. Dade?
Mr. MRDAVEZ, mrdavez.com.
Oh.
Thanks for watching, and a huge thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you're looking to improve your Fusion design skills, it's critical that you become comfortable with the use of sketch constraints, which will dramatically speed up your workflow. I've created a free constraints cheat sheet you can download. Check out the link below. I've also included links to my Fusion video courses and my Patreon page if you'd like to support my channel. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one.